Hello, I've actually already made a tutorial on this project, but I kinda hate it, so I've decided to remake it. So it's a simple project. It's a voice-activated virtual assistant, or simply voice assistant, in Python. It's less than 200 lines of code, so it's pretty simple. We are gonna start with this file. By the way, I'm gonna call the virtual assistant Sid, but you can call it whatever you want. Okay, let's actually start out by defining a main function. We're gonna go kind of old school and do a main function, hello world, and we're gonna call this main function in here. So basically this will be our entry point, the call to the main function. Okay, we're gonna start out by defining a function audio to text, and it's gonna take recognizer and mic. So we're actually gonna use speech recognition package, and we'll shorten it to SR. And so it takes mic and recognizer. First off, we're gonna check if the parameters that we've passed, if for example recognizer is actually an instance of type sr.recognizer. If it's not, we're gonna raise a type error, and the same with the microphone. And then we have a result. It's a dictionary with two fields, success, which will initialize to true, and input, which will initialize to none. And with that microphone as our source, because we want to convert audio from our microphone to text, we adjust for ambient noise. This is just a default way to go with speech recognition package. And then we get an audio input by calling recognizer.listen and passing microphone. And so yeah, then we try to recognize by using Google speech recognition API. We pass in audio input. We're doing this in try block, so if it will return an exception unknown value error, we will put input to none, which is kind of already to none. But what this means basically is that there was some audio input, but there was no words. So for example, there was a noise or something like that. And SR request error it's if the API that we're using is unavailable. Then we set the flag success to false and input to speech recognition API is unavailable, and we return the result. And now let's get to getting the audio to text working. So first off, we initialize the recognizer, and then we initialize the microphone. I think if you're using a default mic, then you can leave this empty, but I'm actually not going to be using the default mic. I'm going to be using another external mic for this, so I set device index to 1. And here is the main part of our program. It's a while true loop, which takes basically calls audio to text, gets the result, this thing here. If the result was not success, then we print out technical problems, and it will print out, in this case, speech recognition Google API is unavailable. Else, if there was no input, we print out, sorry I did not hear you, let's just print out or words could not be discerned, and else it will just print out what we've said. So now let's try running it. And let me get my microphone ready. Hello. I don't know. Yeah, as you can see, it prints everything I said out, everything I say. And yeah, let's start the program. I guess I should also mention how you can install it, because if you don't install it, then you can't use it. Here it is. You simply pip install, just like install. What, there is nothing. Pip. Oh yeah. Here it is, pip install speech recognition. So yeah, that's pretty easy to do. Okay, next we're gonna set up speech synthesis. So we're gonna set up the voice of our virtual assistant. So we're gonna do that by first importing pyttsx3. So the reason why I've declared a global variable here is because it would be inconvenient to pass speech object every time we need to use this function, because we're gonna use it in other functions, so we would have to pass in the object so that it can pass the object to the speak it's just better that way. And yeah, by the way, you download pyttsx3, pip install pyttsx3, you can check everything out in here. So our speech function, speak function, is gonna be pretty simple. It's just speech.say.text, .say, and we say the text, and we run and wait until the audio plays, basically. But first we need to set up the speech object, and we're gonna do this in here. So we use a keyword global in here to say that here we mean the global variable speech, and we do init, then we get voices that our operating system has, and for me I chose the voice at index 2, and basically here we set the property of the voice to this voice ID that I want, and then we set property rate to 125. I think it's the amount of words per minute, or well, it's all in the documentation, but yeah, I basically followed the default kind of value in here. And also the voices, as you can see, there are different voices, for example 0 for male, 1 for female, so there are different voices, and there are actually different they have may have different accents depending on your operating system, so you can experiment and try out different voices that you have installed. Okay, so the speech object is set up, and now let's try to speak, and we'll say hello world, and hopefully we're gonna hear a masculine voice, because that's the voice I picked, because it's Sid, and Sid is a guy.
Hello world.
yeah, hopefully you could hear that. Yeah, so we've got speech synthesis down as well. Now the only thing that is left is the actual brain of our lovely assistant. So we're gonna define a set of functions that our virtual assistant can perform. There are 3 resource files with extension .set after the name of our virtual assistant. So the commands, here are 9 commands. The first one is search, so it's gonna be able to search queries on Google. Then start, it's gonna be able to run scripts that we actually also define. It's gonna be able to tell us time, it's gonna be able to tell us the weather, it's gonna be able to respond to us if we greet him, and it's gonna respond to us if we say goodbye, and also thanks, and it will also go to sleep. It's like inactive state, and wake is the commands to wake up set, and it follows the following structure. The first word on a line is the name of the command, then we got space, colon, space, and then we get a set of words or phrases that are separated by commas, and they're basically different variations of the same command. So for example, a search command, so the virtual assistant is gonna understand that it's a search command if we say search for, or simply search, or find, or look up, or look for. Similarly with start, launch, open, run, and yeah, the same for every other command. So in hello, as you can see, there are a lot of different variations: good morning, good afternoon, hello, hey, so that kind of our virtual assistant seems more intelligent. Then we've got the responses of our virtual assistant. And by the way, the cool thing about these resource files is that we can actually add, so we can modify these resource files without needing to modify the source code of our program. So the responses are okay if it's affirmative kind of response, and we can add a bunch of other stuff in here as well. And then start scripts, they work with this start command, and here the user defines whatever scripts he or she wants to the SID to be able to run. So here I have 4 scripts. And so how do we work with resources? Well, actually pretty simple. We define, first of all, we need to read those resource files. We're gonna use this function read entire file. It takes in file path, and in try block we try to open it for reading. We read the contents and we close, and then we return file contents if it's successful. Next we have get resource, and what this does is basically it parses the file contents, and it creates a dictionary, and basically it splits the file contents into lines first off. This is what this new line character, right? So it splits it into lines, and then we iterate through lines, and we split by space, colon, space. So this part here. And then we basically add to the dictionary, we add the key, which is at 0, which is gonna be, in this example for commands resource files, it's gonna be search. And basically what we put as a value is an array of different variations of the same command. and we get this array by splitting the string by comma. And then we return resource. Around here, where we have global variables, let's add dictionaries for our resources, and we're gonna initialize them with empty, they're just empty dictionaries. Okay, now we need to initialize them. We're gonna do this in here. So basically here we say that we want to use global variables, and we get resource. And that's how we initialize our resources. Pretty simple. And then here, instead of speak, we're gonna have a react function. And what the react function is gonna do is it's gonna react to the user input. So it's gonna react to whatever user says. If active, so if our virtual assistant is active, then we try to match the input to whatever command. And if there is a match, then we execute that command. Else, we check if the input is matched to the wake command. And if it is, then we're gonna wake our set up. We're gonna need first off to declare a global boolean variable active right now. And we're also gonna need to define the match function, and then we're gonna one by one we're gonna implement our actual functionality, the functionality of our virtual assistant. Match is a boolean, it's gonna return true or false. Basically we take in the command type and the words or input, and so we go through the command. For example, in a search command, the command type is search, so we're gonna get a list of words, vocabulary words. That's how I call them. This is this list here, and we're gonna try and match. So here we check if the vocab word is in our user input, so in the words that the user said, and if it is, then we return true. If we go through all the vocabulary words and there is nothing, then we return false. A very simple way to check and match the commands to the input, rather the input to commands. Declaring the active boolean variable, and this is it. Let's start out with wake command, probably because it's probably the easiest one. We get this response, I'm here, so the set is gonna say I'm here, and we set the global active variable to true. And let's also execute the sleep command, not execute, but implement the execute sleep command first. And we'll say going to sleep to indicate that we're deactivated. False. Go to sleep.
Going to sleep.
Wake up.
I'm here.
Go to sleep.
Going to sleep.
Yeah, so we've got the wake and sleep commands down. We've implemented those. Now let's go for something a bit more interesting. Let's go for time command. Why not? So for that we need to import datetime. Execute time command is gonna look like this. So we get the current time, and then we don't need to print it. Let's print it for debugging purposes, but yeah, simply we say it's and hours, minutes, seconds, and then the date. So yeah, let's test this out. What's current time?
It's 17:04 Saturday 27 of November 2021.
Yeah, so that's right. So here we have the very minimal functionality, and from here basically you can think of whatever, come up with whatever commands you can and just put them in here. These are all the commands, well, these that I came up with that I thought were quite cool. So let's go on and implement the rest of them. Let's implement something more interesting, such as search and start and weather, and the rest of these as well. So in search command we have basically what we do in here is we trim the command part of the query. This is not very necessary, but basically it's done so that, for example, we say search for I don't know, cars, and this will trim the search for, and basically we will get the query cars. So that we can put this query in here in the search query for google.com, and basically we construct this query and we use web browser.open and this URL so that it will open the browser and it will enter the search query, and for that we will need the web browser. Search for cars.
Opening in the browser.
As you can see, we have this URL here, search q equals cars. So this is a kind of a very simple way to, well, search stuff. Yeah, so this is the start command, and initially, as you can see, I implemented this feature which so occasionally Sid will respond to start command. Most of the time he will not. You will say open browser and it will open a browser for you and will say nothing, but in 12.5% of occurrences it will actually respond in an OK response, which is one of those where, of course, you write away, OK, starting. Yeah, so it's not necessary and you can do without it, but for that we actually need random, but the main thing is in here, and we try to figure out if the words contain any script name that we have in here, and if it does, then we open the script. And this is how we do this with popen, which we import from a sub process. So basically this is this will run the script command, whatever we have in here, and for that we need to import subprocess. From subprocess we need to import popen and create new console. Oh yeah, I forgot import random launch browser, open workspace 1, go to sleep.
Going to sleep.
So it actually, yeah, so I asked it to open the browser, it opened it, I asked it to open workspace 1, which is this script right here, which opens, let's start the program, which opens the VS Code at this location, Acorn Store, which is one of my projects. So yeah, the start command works. Weather is gonna be pretty simple. I actually think we might be able to do this even more simply. So execute weather command. So the weather, the way we are gonna show the weather is we are simply gonna execute a search command, and it's gonna search for weather. So we're actually just gonna send a Google search request and it will open up in the browser. So it's gonna be very, very simple. So let's actually do this. Let's execute search command and we'll pass in search weather. And yeah, let's try this out. What's the weather like?
Opening in the browser.
Here we go. We've got the weather here. Next we are gonna have, yeah, greet command, invite command, and thanks command, which is pretty simple. The greet function is just gonna take a response for hello, a hello response, and it's gonna randomly select a hello response variation. And similarly with bye and thanks, but in bye we are also quitting the application. So we're gonna import system, and yeah, so let's check this out, and I believe that's all. Yeah. Good evening.
Nice to see you.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
And it quits. The program stops. So hopefully this was clear enough. I think it's cool. This kind of particular implementation is very cool because we have a lot of the user has the ability to customize it a lot. So we can customize the commands variations, we can customize the responses, and we can well, add as many scripts, as many different scripts as we want, really. So I think that's quite powerful. It's pretty simple. The code is available on GitHub, so you can check it out if you wanna check out the source code. You can actually take it as a base and build even more stuff with it, or modify it however you like. So yeah, thank you, and I'll see you next time, hopefully. Bye.